Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone has had a great week out there so far as we head off into our weekend. It's a pretty active stretch of weather for certain areas of the country, and I would say for a lot of areas of the country because areas that don't necessarily get winter weather, which will be the main topic in this morning's video, will get a lot of rain. But of course, we're going to focus a lot on the winter weather side of things in this video. So the first thing we'll cover is the first winter storm that is making its way across the Rockies right now. It'll make its way across the plains, the Great Lakes region, and then eventually into the Northeast. For some areas, this will be your biggest winter storm of the winter. I mean, Boston, for example, they're now calling for 8 to 12 inches of snow, and that's just one example for a city that has just got smaller to medium events so far this winter, but that'll certainly change into the weekend. So we'll speak on that storm, get very detailed, show you some graphics from the National Weather Service that reflect the forecast totals for snow and ice. And then we'll talk about next week's setup that is going to support maybe multiple winter storms. So that's where it gets really complex. I don't think there will just be one specific winter storm. Like I said, I think there will be multiple rounds of winter weather. So we need to figure that one out. And then we'll take a little bit of time to discuss the longer range, as I do think a lot of cold air could continue to dump into the lower 48. I know it's been warm for a lot of areas of the South, but that doesn't mean that there's not cold air for certain areas across the lower 48. So we'll speak on if that cold air can make it into areas of the South. I mean, is winter over? A lot of people think winter's just flat out over. That's not going to get cold again. Believe it or not, people do think that. And forget that it can snow even in March in the South. But I'll give you my opinions on some things. We'll speak on some things there. But for my folks that tune in for the daily forecast, I do not got you covered in this morning's video. Friday mornings are a tough morning just because I got to get to the school a little bit early. I mentor a kid and have to get there at 7 instead of 7:30, so that makes all the difference. So I'll have to leave you guys hanging that are tuning in for the today's forecast version of the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the latest winter watches and advisories, warnings, things like that. So, I mean, you can actually see where our winter storm is pretty much tracking. I'm going to draw on this a little bit. It's going pretty much like this. And everybody kind of south of this area is too warm for winter weather, except, of course, the Rockies of Colorado and Wyoming. But you can tell where the main avenue of winter weather is going to be. We got winter weather advisories right here. We got some winter storm watches right here. We got winter storm watches in southern New England. And just to kind of zoom into a couple areas, it does not look like you're going to get winter storm warning as of now criteria snow from Minneapolis. At one point they were calling for a lot more snow than what they're calling for right now, but still a decent snow event. But they are maintaining winter storm watches in central Wisconsin. These could get upgraded to warnings. And there's no alerts in Michigan, but you guys at minimum will get winter weather advisories here soon. And there is winter storm watches once again kind of issued for like the Allegheny Mountains, kind of these higher elevated regions of PA, Western Maryland. Nothing, I don't think, down here into West Virginia from what I see, but that could change. I don't think this will be a big winter weather event this weekend into West Virginia. Next week could be a little different. And then we got winter storm watches scattered across southern New England. In fact, all of southern New England has winter storm watches. And these do drop all the way down to New York City, Long Island. You guys got winter storm watches all the way up here to Albany. Boston obviously included, Hartford, Providence, and pretty much all of Southeast Mass, except Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. You guys do not have watches as of now, but this is going to be, for a lot of areas in southern New England, your biggest winter storm of the season. So this is what's going on right now. Let's go on and break this down. Let's just show you the latest Euro model. Let's see if we do have that 06Z run in. And it looks like we do, but we don't have the entirety of the run. So let's just stick with a good old OOZ. I don't think a whole lot's probably changed, but this is starting out today. We start to get into this evening for your Friday night. Slither of snow begins to move in and pretty much take over a good chunk of central Minnesota. We'll get some snow flying around tonight in Minneapolis. How heavy will it get? It'll be cold enough, so certainly everything will stick. It's just how heavy is the snow going to be. the snow continues to make its way into Wisconsin. As you can tell, just light blues, which means this will probably be some lighter precipitation. As we're getting into Saturday morning, snow pretty much taking over a good chunk of the upper Midwest. We do have freezing rain showing up tomorrow morning for central Illinois, central Indiana, maybe even starting off as a little bit of freezing rain in Indianapolis, southern Ohio. I wouldn't worry too much in these areas. I don't think the icing is going to be too bad at all. Just a light glaze, maybe as much as a tenth of an inch of ice, enough to really see it kind of glistening, shining in the trees, if you will. I don't think it'll be a big deal, but as you can tell, you get to about midday tomorrow. See this corridor of darker blue? That's heavier snow for like Green Bay into north central Wisconsin. And this could kind of blossom into more heavier snow precipitation into lower Michigan. I think it'll remain pretty light in the UP tomorrow evening. I'm probably going to forget to mention time frames throughout this video, but you can look up here. This is tomorrow evening, 7 p.m., 6 p.m. Central Time. But you do got this corridor of kind of, I would say this is right on the northern fringe of heavier precipitation, but you're probably going to get some icing into northern areas of Indiana and Ohio, Cleveland, and there will be kind of an ice snow line, freezing rain, sleet, snow line somewhere into here, separating the snow compared to the sleet and freezing rain. And this heads on out, and by the time we're into the overnight hours of tomorrow night, still snowing pretty good in like areas of lower Michigan, but then this all begins to head out, and then you're left with just a little bit of lingering lake effect snow, and it's pretty much done. Now the Northeast, much more significant events. We'll start off Saturday morning. One thing I want to note here is there is on the Euro an all-out wintry mix breaking out across even central to northern VA, higher favored elevations of West Virginia, starting out with some freezing rain. Heck, even some snow breaking out across the Delmarva. Even starting off with snow, say, in Washington, D.C., Baltimore. And then the precipitation really begins to blossom tomorrow evening. And we get an all-out winter storm breaking out, starting off with snow in New York City tomorrow evening. If you're out and about in the town, it'll be a very festive, wintry type night for New York City. Snow moving into Long Island, New York City, northern New Jersey, northern PA. Any kind of snow quickly switches to freezing rain across central to southern PA. I think like southwestern PA will get warm nose because of the placement of low pressure. Any kind of freezing rain will likely switch to good old rain and most of West Virginia, but you start to get into later in the evening, 9, 10, 11 p.m. Heavier snow begins to move into New York City, Long Island, southern New York, the southern tier of New York, and then some light snow begins to move into Boston. And look at the ice in southern New Jersey, southern PA, northern Delaware. You hate to see that. And then we start to get into the middle of the night tomorrow night. Like this is midnight, 1 a.m. Heavy snow begins to move in, take over Boston, all of southern New England. Look at this darker blue. This is really heavy snow, really heavy wet snow too. But this is just hours of freezing rain in PA. I could see the icing forecast for some of these areas increasing, which I'm about to show you. But how far north does this snow get? This looks like a pretty nice snowstorm, if you're a winter weather fan, of course, for southern New England. How far north in the northern sections of New England will this get? This brings some heavy snow up into Albany. I know I kind of left you guys hanging on like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, but how far north will the axis of this snow get for you folks? I think it will get up to the Tug Hill Plateau, but I think the heaviest snow, this could be like a true southern New England special, and will stay for southern New England. We're waking up Sunday morning, and it's still snowing pretty hard into Boston, snowing all the way up into southern Maine, starting to get in the down east areas of Maine, pretty much taking all of New Hampshire, Vermont, up to the Adirondacks. Could switch to freezing rain at the tail end of this in New York City. And then this continues to head on out, and by the time we're into Sunday evening, left over with some light snow, and this is pretty much a wrap. So let's work our way west to east. So Minneapolis, as of right now, this could continue to change, going for 3 to 5 inches of snow. A little bit more, a little bit north of Minneapolis, a little bit more. St. Cloud, 4 to 7. Cambridge, 4 to 8. You get south, just a few inches of snow. Rochester, 2 to 4. And Eau Claire, 4 to 7. Just taking a more of a kind of zoomed out look of Minnesota here. This is what you're looking at. You can see there's a sharp cutoff to the north. Not as sharp of a cutoff for the south. A little bit of snow is possible in the northern counties of Iowa, but I don't think this will be a big event for you guys. But, I know I'm kind of leaving the Dakotas out, but Aberdeen could get 3 to 6 inches of snow. Fargo 2 to 4. Linton 3 to 5. So you will get a corridor of heavier snow in this area. And we continue to move and progress eastward. This is Wisconsin, kind of a zoomed in look of the most high impact areas. Green Bay going for a good 4 to 8 inch snowfall. And pretty much that's in general the same kind of idea in this area of north central Wisconsin. Mountain 4 to 7. A lot of names that are tough to pronounce. Marshfield, that's an easy one. 4 to 7 inches of snow, and then it begins to drop off once you get south of Oshkosh and Appleton, but still 4 to 7, 36 inches of snow in these areas. These splotches of yellow, I mean, that's over a half a foot of snow expected. And then just taking a more zoomed out look at Wisconsin, this is what you're looking at. Does show the UP and Michigan. Not much up here, few inches of snow, maybe a little bit of lake enhancement in certain areas, but you get down to Milwaukee, not calling for much. This is just, it's been kind of a relaxed winter from Milwaukee down to Chicago. Milwaukee had a pretty nice winter last winter, but this year not as much snow, it seems like. At least it doesn't feel like I'm talking about you guys as much. Seems like I talked about Wisconsin a lot last winter. But this is definitely a true central to north central winter storm for you guys in Wisconsin. But still, nothing too crazy you guys can't handle, you guys' standards. But northern Illinois, not a big event at all. I don't even know if they'll issue a winter weather advisory. Inch or less of snow in this area, Rockford to Chicago, everybody in between. Could get a little bit of icing. A few 100ths of an inch of ice is possible. Light glaze, not a big deal though at all. Chicago just continues to be winterless lately. Northern Indiana, the northern counties, maybe a trace to an inch. South Bend, they've actually kind of dropped the snowfall totals in this area. Not a big event at all for you guys. Ice, that's a different story. So I need to be careful what I say right at the beginning, because I say not a big event, and then we look at the ice totals. A tenth to maybe 2/10 of an inch of ice now. Fort Wayne, up to Goshen, Angola. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm not the best with pronouncing stuff, guys. I think you guys know that by now. But you get up Interstate 69, it gets up into lower Michigan. Certainly more ice in like northeast Indiana. So be aware of this. Once you get over 1/10 of an inch of ice, you certainly start to notice it on the trees. You get over 1/4 inch of ice, it really becomes an issue with the snapping of the tree limbs, losing of the power, stuff like that. You're heading back up to Michigan here, lower Michigan. 2 to 3 inches of snow in Detroit, Flint, same thing. Bad Axe 4 to 6, Clare 4 to 6, Alma 3 to 4, Big Rapids 4 to 6, Grand Rapids just 1 to 2, Kalamazoo 1 to 2, Cadillac 4 to 6. But more of a northern look at lower Michigan. Does include sections of the UP. This will be where the heaviest snow is. Traverse City 4 to 6, Grayling 3 to 6, Houghton Lake 4 to 7, 4 to 7, and maybe a little lake enhancement off Lake Michigan. We'll see what happens here, but more snow expected, kind of in north central or central areas of lower Michigan. We continue to progress eastward. Cleveland going for a good inch of snow, maybe a little bit more. They've actually dropped in Toledo. They were going for, I think, around 2 inches of snow originally in Toledo. They've dropped it a little bit more maybe in northeast Ohio. But ice totals for this region, certainly got to watch out in northern Ohio for over 1/10 of an inch of ice, especially in this orange area. I don't know what my kids are doing there in the living room, but I hear something. Akron, over 1/10 of an inch of ice. Cleveland, a little glaze. Still forecasting under 1/10. But for anybody, viewing for Ohio, I wouldn't worry too much. Faye, I think you were asking about Ohio and ice. I don't think you have anything to worry about as far as any high impact event. But West Virginia, maybe a light glaze possible. Not that big of a deal. But of course, you get into these higher elevated regions. That's where you can get a few 100ths of an inch of ice to 1/10 of an inch of ice in snowshoe. But I don't think this is going to be a big ice event for you guys whatsoever. Continuing to move into northern VA, the DC, Baltimore area, Maryland, areas of West Virginia. Inch or less in kind of just the light shade of blue here. A little bit of sleet, a little bit of snow possible. Like I said, you could get that wintry mix getting into Saturday. Right at the beginning of the event when there's a little bit more cold air involved. I wouldn't be surprised somebody gets a surprise inch or so of something out here. But as far as ice, they always have this glitchy ice forecast out of the National Weather Service in Baltimore and Washington, so it always looks kind of weird. But Hagerstown, 1/10 to 1/4 inch of ice. Once you get north of the DC, Baltimore area, you could get upwards to 1/4 inch of ice. So just be aware of that. glaze possible south of DC, south of 66, Interstate 66. And if you live in this kind of yellowish orange area, that's where you could get just some light ice accumulations and just some sleet also. So keep that in mind. Also, up here in the PA, I think southern sections of PA is going to get more so ice. Northern sections of PA, a few to as much as several inches of snow is possible. The northern counties could get 3 to 4, Scranton 3, Wellsboro 4, Coudersport 4 inches, Bradford 4, Warren 4. State College, maybe an inch of snow. Some areas could overachieve, some areas could underachieve. But I really think it's the icing issues that are really the problem here. In that shade of yellow, few 100ths of an inch of ice. The orange, over 1/10 of an inch of ice is possible to likely. State College, about 1/10. And then you get into the Allegheny Mountains, higher elevations in the red, over 1/4 of an inch of ice is expected. This is freezing rain. You're going to get sleet mixed in with this too. A lot of sleet could fall in certain areas, but once again, you're going to deal with some nasty ice. You were able to warm up pretty quick in certain areas from yesterday's ice event, but you got another one right on its heels, and you can have more next week. So starting to move a little bit further to the east is New Jersey. You guys could get some ice too. I mean, Philadelphia could get a good 1/10 of an inch of ice. Trenton, Camden, Mount Holly, 1/10 to maybe 2/10 of an inch of ice. It lessens up a little bit closer to New York City, but even along the Jersey Shore, you could get a few 100ths of an inch of ice. So, don't let any kind of icing concerns catch you by surprise. Snowfall for New Jersey, southern areas of New Jersey and the Delaware, inch or less. You get into northern New Jersey, anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of snow is possible, especially up here in these higher elevated regions of northern New Jersey. The hills, 500 feet to 1,000 feet makes a huge difference. So definitely going to get some solid snowfall in northern New Jersey. Now, taking a look, they always got great graphics out in New York City. Taking a look at New York City surrounding areas. NYC itself, 4 to 6 inches of snow is expected. So a pretty decent event is forecast. We'll see if this achieves the forecast amounts. Long Island, anywhere from 3 to as much as 6 inches of snow. It just depends on where you live. The northern sections of Long Island, even though it's not that wide, probably can get a little bit more. You get up into southern areas of Connecticut, 6 to 8 inches of snow is forecast. So they've dropped some of the totals in this area, but listen, this could turn around and go right back up. So don't get too bummed out one way or the other if you're a big snow fan, but if you live in that light shade of yellow, 6 to 8 inches of snow is forecast in this region right now. So not going to mention every single name, but hopefully your area or close to it is on that screen. The rest of New York, between now and 7 p.m. Sunday, 5 inches in Buffalo, Rochester going for 7, Syracuse 6, Tuck Hill Plateau could get over a foot, Watertown 5, Albany 8 inches of snow, Binghamton 5. So a decent snow event for you guys. And then we get into southern areas of New England, Massachusetts, Hartford. Well, Hartford's not a state, Hartford's a city, Mitch. Connecticut, Rhode Island. I told you I thought they would start to, drop some 8 to 12 inches of snow on here. Maybe for Boston. Sure enough, they're going for 8 to 12 inches of snow now for Boston. They've actually dropped some snow totals for areas of Western Mass. And maybe that was because they were combining the snow yesterday. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. But I could see this area still able to increase, especially areas point south. Providence now 6 to 8. I think it was 4 to 6 yesterday. Plymouth 6 to 8. Provincetown 4 to 6. Nantucket 3 to 4. Martha's Vineyard probably 4 to 6 inches of snow. Lawrence 8 to 12. Fitchburg 8 to 12. Decent, quick hitting, wet snowstorm for you guys in southern New England. And then we head on up the road to Vermont. Robin, you look like you're going to get a pretty solid snowstorm out of this. Anywhere from, I would say, 7 to 9 inches of snow. All the towns and communities in southern Vermont, you're going to get 6 to 8 inches of snow, maybe more in certain areas, a little bit less once you get into northern Vermont. Adirondacks, a good half a foot of snow is possible. The further north you get, probably the less snow you get. New Hampshire, everybody's pretty much good for about, I would say, 4 to 7 inches of snow. Manchester 6, Portsmouth 7, Portsmouth, however way y'all pronounce it up here. But Maine, this is a less event for you guys, but it does speak to the uncertainty a little bit. Rockland, Bar Harbor, going for wide varieties here. 3 to as much as 7 inches of snow. So it does have a pretty wide range. It tells you that this could bump up to the north. I think they're keeping the higher end kind of there. But this is it for the system this weekend. Now let's go on and break down next week's setup. So we're going to fly through this and not get super detailed on each individual round of precipitation because we don't know how all this is going to connect. But we'll start this off in the central U.S. and then we'll break down the eastern U.S. So this is Monday afternoon. So you got moisture coming out the Gulf, the south. We got a little bit of northern stream energy dropping down with the kind of, I would say, reinforcing shot of cold air. So we got snow Monday afternoon breaking out across South Dakota, moisture building in from the south. And as they kind of connect here, we start to get this winter weather event. And this isn't like a really heavy precipitation. Like this is the middle of the night, this coming Monday into Tuesday. We're starting to get into the 11th. Light snow across the plains, getting into the Midwest. And then we start to get some heavier precipitation that begins to bubble up from the south. Now, how heavy, how far north does that heavier moisture get into the cold air? Not quite sure, but certainly going to get some widespread winter weather probably Tuesday morning across the middle of the country. And then we start to make our way into Tuesday evening. That initial round begins to move east, right? Then we're left with some light snow, and then we start to get into Wednesday morning, the 12th of February. Here comes another winter weather event. Winter weather a little bit further south now. We got some icing concerns all the way down to Oklahoma City. Not a forecast. We got all out snow in Kansas. And this wants to bring a winter weather event for St. Louis, Kansas City, all the way down to Springfield, Missouri, the Ozarks. And we continue just to get winter weather all the way down to like Tulsa, Oklahoma City. But one thing I'm noticing is there's not a whole lot of heavy moisture kind of getting thrown into the cold air. Most of the heaviest moisture is kind of staying on the warm side. We'll see if that changes. But there's going to be a lot of cold air in here. This is very, very cold temperature. So anything falling, accumulating, whether it's freezing rain, sleet, or snow. This wants to bring, as we're getting into Wednesday night and the next Thursday, we're getting into the 12th to the 13th at this point. It really cranks up at this point, so it turns into an all-out snowstorm for St. Louis, almost all the way to Peoria, Springfield, Illinois, all the way through Indianapolis, Chicago maybe, and then that moves on out. Does anything happen after that? We get about a week from today. At this point, we've had 3 winter storms across the country, and here comes more Pacific energy shooting across, but it looks more amped up, and there's going to be a lot more to come after this. It's just figuring out the details of it. What about the GFS? This is the morning GFS starting off Monday afternoon. The 10th, there it is, that winter weather breaking out across the middle of the country, the plains, central plains, the Midwest. We got snow in Kansas, Nebraska, back to Colorado, snow breaking out across southern Illinois, Indiana, heck, even in Kentucky, Missouri. And we continue, and we get into Tuesday. It continues. It's just kind of like this elongated continuous push of moisture into this cold air. It's going to have flooding issues to the south, which we'll get more detailed on as we get closer. But this system sort of finally ejects, if you will, into the eastern U.S., and then another system comes, and this is colder, kind of like the Euro, and this is Wednesday midday. Here comes another winter storm. This one wants to show a snowstorm for Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Brings winter weather as far south as northern Arkansas. Brings winter weather Wednesday evening. Heavy snow. I mean, all the way up to Kansas City into St. Louis. Moderate snow Wednesday night and Thursday into Illinois. Brings a winter storm, quick hitting winter storm into like Indianapolis for Thursday morning. And then here comes another round of precip after that. And then what happens is the weekend, and here comes another system. 8 days from now. And who knows how the details of this, but this continues to move, and this shit turns into a bigger winter storm, say, for Chicago, and then that moves on out, and I mean, you're going to have energy flying through continuously. Just a lot of stuff can happen. So what about the Euro ensemble for snow? Now remember, everything you're seeing up here is the weekend stuff. So just kind of ignore that. I want you to kind of watch how this area begins to fill in right here. And this is the combination of multiple rounds of winter weather. This is the Euro ensemble, blends 51 members together. So check it out. We get into next Wednesday, we get into next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday the 16th, and we'll take it 10 days out. So there's a pretty solid signal for winter weather across the middle of the country. And once you get into Arkansas, Oklahoma, points south, it begins to drop off. But you get up into Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, heck, even northern Kentucky, points north. That is a pretty solid look for winter weather. You got a few to as much as a several-inch snowfall mean. I mean, Heck, you even got like over a 6 to 7 inch snowfall average in Chicago, an area that really hasn't gotten any significant winter weather this winter. St. Louis, for example, 5-inch snowfall average. Omaha looks like a pretty decent snowfall average at minimum. I think you'll at least get some light snow out of this pattern. I know you guys are in a bit of a snow drought up here, but certainly looks pretty active. Now you begin to switch it into the eastern U.S. The winter storm train continues. We start off Monday afternoon. We're past the weekend storm. What is the latest Euro show? Here it comes. Cranks up another winter storm. So this is Tuesday morning, the 11th. We got winter weather, and let's just go on and we can switch it to the 06Z. And we're going to have to switch it back to the 00Z here in a second. So this is the 12Z. This is 12Z Tuesday. So it's Tuesday morning, the 11th. We got this corridor of heavy winter weather breaking out across southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, northern Kentucky, into West Virginia, and even into Virginia. And this continues. We take it into midday Tuesday. This wants to bring heavy snow into D.C., northern VA, northern West Virginia, Maryland. Getting into PA, this wants to bring this corridor of heavy snow into southern Ohio, and then wants to bring very heavy snow through New Jersey, northern Delaware, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York City, Long Island. And this continues. It keeps it all ice, solid cold air damming set up for western VA, eastern West Virginia, and turns into another snow event for southern New England. Now, how far north will this low be? This keeps most of the heaviest snow offshore. But this latest Euro wants to keep DC all frozen precipitation. It goes from snow to freezing rain. And then you think it's over. And then here comes another system gearing up. Now, this one does look warmer, but low pressure just cutting right across the Tennessee Valley. Just bringing a ton of warm air, but this wants to bring a larger winter storm for like the Midwest, like Indianapolis, like Northwest Ohio, into Detroit, into southern New England. That too, southern New England, southern Ontario. But then we'll have to switch it back to the OOZ. Doesn't look a whole lot different. And this really looks warm. Like it cuts a 998 millibar low. Powerful system right through PA Thursday morning the 13th. Keeps most of the heaviest winter weather in Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis. I mean, heck, even some heavy snow into northern Kentucky. All rain. You just get a wind-driven rain in southern New England. And then what happens after that? More winter weather. Here comes another winter weather event for the Northeast. All rain for a good chunk of the eastern U.S. And this, whatever happens after this, there's a signal for a pretty powerful storm, I would say, next weekend. I mean, this is just a lot of energy flying around. You got a powerful cold front moving in. You got just a lot going on here. Looks like a really warm system, but you got a pretty powerful low pressure cutting through here. And who knows what happens after that. Day 10, like next weekend, there's some signals that's showing a pretty powerful storm next weekend. Now, what about the GFS? GFS continues to show a wintry mix or just flat out snow breaking out across central VA Sunday night, really late Sunday night into Monday morning. As you can tell, we got snow flying around as far south as northern North Carolina and Norfolk, Virginia Beach. It's not a forecast because the Euro really isn't biting on this much, but Monday morning you kind of have this pre-event breaking out across this region. And this lasts like most of the day. We're getting into Monday afternoon, still cold enough for some snow in northern North Carolina. And then the main event starts to move in. And this is getting into Tuesday morning. And like I said, the GFS is just much colder. It wants to bring an all-out snowstorm into Kentucky, Virginia, even southern West Virginia. And it's just more suppressed. It's so cold that it actually gives you an ice storm down in like the favored climate regions of northwest North Carolina, Boone. This is heavy snow into like Richmond. Heavy snow up to DC. It keeps the winter weather really far south. And look at this nasty ice in the North Carolina. Kind of those foothills regions, the Triad. Mostly rain in Tennessee, but boy, you are close to winter weather. Kentucky getting it. And this continues, and you say all freezing rain in some of these counties in northern and northwest North Carolina. And this would just be, the GFS would say, hey, this is going to be all snow for most of West Virginia. And all winter weather for Kentucky. This would be a pretty solid snowstorm for D.C., for the Delmarva. And it keeps the heaviest snow south of southern New England. And interesting scenario. And then here comes the system right behind it. More flooding rains for the south, and here comes another cold air damming setup. So another freezing rain here in the pink as we're getting into next Thursday morning, the 13th. Look at the snow all the way on top of this for the Midwest. And another winter storm for D.C., for Charlottesville, for Roanoke, all the way up to Baltimore. I mean, you would probably get a lot of rain if something like this was to happen in this evolution for West Virginia, but this would bring more winter weather for the Northeast next Thursday. And then here comes another system, and then we get into next weekend. And sure enough, the GFS is showing a lot of energy for like next Saturday and a Sunday. Something's brewing next weekend for a powerful system. I'm not quite sure what the evolution of it will be, but there's starting to become some agreement with some sort of powerful system next weekend. And then what happens after that, who knows? Bunch of energy flying around. Yeah, so who knows? And I'll kind of, just for my interest, look at, yeah, it just continues just to show a ton of energy all the way through the end of the run. And I keep forgetting, it's still early February. To me, in my mind, it almost feels like it's late February. So we're going to do a little bit different in the eastern U.S. We're going to do this in two-day increments, 48 hours. So this snow that you see right here is for this weekend. So you're going to see that disappear off your screen, and then more snow show up further south. So this is the Euro ensemble. Here it comes. There's the signal for the midweek winter storm around the winter weather. You can see there's a pretty solid signal right into here, into the Ohio Valley, areas of the Midwest, especially the Mid-Atlantic, into southern New England. And then here comes a reinforcing signal as we're getting into late next work week. And then, here comes another signal next weekend. And it's just round after round. Okay? Now, if we look at, say, the GFS ensemble, what does it show? It picks up, and we're going to have to do, let's just do 24-hour periods. It picks up on that little Monday morning kind of deal in VA. You see this? Couple inch snowfall average. This is for Monday, the 10th. Okay, then that kind of disappears, and then here comes the larger event. And sure enough, the GFS ensemble follows its operational run and really likes the idea of the Mid-Atlantic getting a solid snowstorm from this. Kentucky through West Virginia, the Delmarva, and keeps the heaviest snow south of southern New England, New York. Okay, and then here comes the other signal behind it. That's definitely further north up into the Northeast. And then there's another signal after that, and then things can get wild into the weekend. Now, there's going to be ice to this too. This is for this weekend. Watch as I progress this forward. It's getting into Tuesday, next Tuesday. You start to get, this is the chances of 1/10 of an inch of ice. So it begins to increase for areas of Western Virginia, Eastern West Virginia, those favorite areas, mountainous regions, extreme Northwest North Carolina. You start to see over a 50% chance of 1/10 of an inch of ice in some of these areas. So we're going to deal with more icing issues, and heck, it even begins to show up after this into late next week. You're going to have chances of more accumulating freezing rain. One thing I'll tell you guys is between now and the Euro ensemble, between now and the next 10 days, pretty significant winter storm pattern for the Northeast and even areas of the Mid-Atlantic. You're just going to get winter storm after winter storm up in the Northeast. So if you're a big-time winter weather fan, you love this pattern coming up. Shows over 1.5 feet snowfall mean, for example, in Boston. So, all right, for any hope for my friends here in the South, do I have anything hope-wise to offer you guys? What I can tell you is, if we look at the Euro ensemble, the blues, the lower pressure, the warmer colors on your screen, the yellows, the oranges, that's ridging. The deep red you see up here, that is really strong ridging. It's warmer than average temperature. So this is at 500 millibars. Doesn't always tell you what's going on at the surface. With all this winter storm action going on in the eastern U.S., it's really dealing with a lot of low-level cold. But anyways, One thing I'm noticing as we're getting into this weekend, see this big blob of blue here? That's a strong storm system, a big dip in the jet, diving into the central and eastern U.S. Remember I kept telling you about a strong system that's possible for next weekend? It's a pretty strong signal for that on the Euro ensemble right there. That's a pretty strong storm system moving in. I think that this is going to bring more significant impacts. This is going to move in, probably bring some sort of powerful storm system, a shot of cold air with it. What happens after that? Once you get past day 10, do we get more rounds of cold air? I think we will. For example, the Euro ensemble, as we're getting into around, I would say, the third week of February, wants to bring another shot of cold air, another dip in the jet, and this is more so centered in the eastern U.S. So I have to see what happens with that. This will continue to create an opportunity for colder than average temperatures and more stormier setups. We got the digging right here. We got low pressures kind of swinging through here. So we're going to continue to get this active storm track with cold air to boot. So as far as that cold air, its temperatures compared to average, the blues, the greens, the Barney colors here, that's well below average temperatures, especially once you get into the purples. And then kind of the reds and the oranges here, that's above average temperatures. So we're starting this off around Tuesday of next week. We get into Wednesday. Look how this cold air on the Euro ensemble really begins to sag into the central U.S. And then we start to get into about a week from today, that cold air shot makes its way into the eastern U.S. Another warm up. And then about day 10, cold air really begins to take over the central and eastern U.S. completely. So to me, that matches up pretty well, and this continues all the way through the length of the run. Who knows if this will moderate or some, but what I can tell you is there's a lot of cold air that continues to spill into the country. Now, your average high temperatures, once you get into mid to late February, begin to kind of spike for a lot of areas. But this matches up well with the MJO phase and where we're heading with this. So I know MJO phases can be hard to explain, and even I'm still learning them, guys. So I'm definitely not an expert in this. But what we know is kind of phase 4, 5, 6 are warm phases for the eastern U.S. Now, once you get into phase 7, this is when a lot of cold air can start to get dislodged, especially for the central U.S. So right now, it's February 7th, so we're kind of right into here. So this is February 2, February 4, 5. We're right here. So we're starting to enter phase 7, which honestly makes sense. If we look at the long range, phase 7 normally supports a big cold air dump into the central U.S., and that's exactly what we're starting to get. Now, if you notice, phase 8, phase 1, even 2, and even 3 as we're getting into March, but I would say 8 and 1 and 2 are definitely favorable phases for cold and, heck, even winter weather chances for areas further south. So what you'll notice is we race through phase 7 pretty fast and get into phase 8 by next week. And how long are we in phase 8, that favorable phase? Not quite sure, but I think models might be having a hard time latching on to these two phases here. And I think that we could get a trend colder into the weekend and the longer range, because models are just having a hard time picking up on the favorable progression into the favorable and the phase into the more favorable. All right, let me slow down. The progression into the favorable phases of the MJO. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, but listen, my personal opinion is we're going to get something weird that happens even for the South for the tail end of February into early March. I just think that where we're heading, MJO-wise, cold air there's a signal that cold air continues to spill into the lower 48 from the northern latitudes. I think eventually something could happen. I'm not talking about another blizzard in Louisiana, but I could see certain areas that are considered the South getting more winter weather before we're all said and done. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have a wonderful start to your weekend.